Hello and welcome back to Live Now with Veenu and Chuck. It has been a while and we are so excited to be live. We want to welcome you to Spanglish World and her network on Zingo TV's channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores and on iOS and Android devices. When you download, please make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire Sticks, Roku Sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. And like I said, Chuck, here we are live again. It's so good to see you, my brother.
Right back at you. It has been too long. I was actually having a new withdrawal. And so I know you're a world traveler and you've been expanding your distinction sites, skill sets. And I'll just say this, my heart is full. I get to see you and we get to have another great and amazing engagement. So love you, my sister. Thank you so much.
Yes. And what better off, like you said, I've been a world traveler. It's been great being in Australia and going to this retreat and deepening my, if you would, spiritual practice. And it's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, right? Like the difference between religion and spirituality and, not saying one's right or one's wrong. It's identifying where you're at and the language we're using to really have the intellectual conversation of where we're at and what our beliefs are based on and the choices that we're making in life and where they're stemming from and where we're going with them.
Exactly. I mean, you couldn't have given a more robust and beautiful intro. Yeah, it's interesting because at times people are like going, okay, religion, religious. What is that? Well, let's break it down for a second because it's actually really simple. There is a procedure, an environment, a structure around religion. There's strong dogmas and beliefs and rules that go along with a lot of religions. We will call them the Bible, the Torah, the you're espousing as far as your practice is concerned. And then we have some very strong rooted beliefs. As the Reverend Michael Beckwith put it, he goes, religion for most people is trying to avoid hell. Spirituality or spirit is when you've already lived through it. And it was like, ooh, that is so profound. In spirituality, we end up actually finding more of ourselves because it's through those trials and tribulations. And we've talked about this on so many episodes before, but really it's about the lessons, the learnings, the distinctions, the connections, and the understanding that we actually cultivate. It's not following blindly. It's not that we are not living within our rules. The difference is they're our rules that we have developed through our vision and not just something that's coming external to us that's being imposed or supposed to be living to.
Right.
So huge. So what does this mean in the context of beliefs and values? Well, we're the culmination of all of our experiences. So when we start to get into this space of getting some clarity around, okay, I wonder where all this came from and why I feel the way that I feel. So, Veenu, have you ever had a time where you just felt like you had a reaction? Something happened, you're like, really, Chuck? We're going there?
All the time.
Me too. So if I were to ask you, was it a religious-based experience that you used as a reference? Or is it was something within your spirituality that guided you possibly through it or out of it?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because if you would have asked me that when I was a child and I was told to go to temple and I was told to learn my religion, I would have looked at, am I making this decision based on following what the religion says? But now as a person who's evolved and understanding that spirituality is really getting in touch with the journey through the beliefs that we've had of how we're elevating or awakening in ourselves,
Yes.
To know that there's something greater beyond us. I would say that most of my choices would be, if not from ego, from spirit, from my spirituality, from my own greatness.
That's beautiful. And it's wonderful to see that you're embodying and living in that space and that grace of understanding that it was through all those trials and tribulations that we create this spirituality, this greater understanding that there must be something bigger than us. There must be. And oftentimes, in fact, I would say that most of the time when you and I are involved in these discussions, that we're in this state of spirituality, that we're actually in this space where what we're saying wasn't cultivated. We didn't have this whole plan of attack. Hey, Veenu, I'm going to say this. Hey, Chuck, you respond like this. It's like, no. What I love about Live Now, it's in the moniker of the name, we're living in the moment and now. And what guides this entire engagement is that level of conviction and faith, that we're going to faith it as we make it, that we're going to believe as we achieve. But where did that come from? And so I would offer that religious versus spiritual doesn't have to be separate modalities, that it doesn't have to be these things that are uniquely in.
So as he's frozen, I'm going to keep with the conversation. Oh, there you are, Chuck.
That is so strange. I have bandwidth, so we'll see how this goes. So part of this is that your spirituality and your religion aren't separate things. They're actually guided together. They're actually connected. In fact, they're so intertwined. To your point, when you went to temple, you developed some ideologies and some complex ideas as to what your religion meant to you.
Well, there's a right way versus a wrong way. And I think that's what religion does. And here's the concept that, because it's funny, because I studied world religion in college just because I was so fascinated by it. Like I've been to, a Jewish temple. I've been to a Mormon church. I've been to, a lot of Catholic churches and Christian churches, and to my own, Sikh temples. And here's what I have found about world religion is that none of them started off as a religion. It was a way of living. Yes. Religion was supposed to be a way of living. It's man made it a religion. Man made it, again, kind of what Reverend Beckwith was saying is that, religion is teaching you the rules to get to hell. So there's a right and a wrong way. Where with spirituality, there's not a right or wrong way. It's do what you feel called to do, knowing that there's someone beyond you, an energy, if you would, that pulls you to making a better decision outside of the ego, because the ego wants to keep you safe. The ego wants you to play small. The ego wants to, to create this compensating agenda where it makes you feel like you have to resolve your identity of not being good enough, not belonging, not seeing yourself as worthy, not being capable. And the ego really wants you to resolve that before you get what you really love. And it's interesting because I've really dived deep into William Whitecloud's work. And this is exactly what he talks about. And he doesn't call it spirituality. I'm calling it that because it's really waking up the spirit inside of me saying, hey, look, I'm whole already the moment I was born, and that I have nothing to prove to any God or anything. And the best I can do is to realize, to visualize, to know what would I really love without the ego involving saying, no, you can't have that yet. You're not worthy of that yet. It's knowing that I'm worthy of it and just acknowledging that those feelings and emotions show up. And yet I'm still able to create what I would truly love when I'm not getting obstructed or, derailed, if you would, to really trying to resolve the identity that I have these beliefs, which have come from my mother, my father, and as you grow, it's like, oh gosh, the religion even says that. So they must be right because God says this. To realize that there's no wrong or right. There's no good or bad. We're just all going through an experience.
Now, I love what you just said. And what it really denotes is interpretation. It denotes that in the context of your life where you're living and what you truly espouse to. Because I do have this belief, and this belief is that we're all made up of atoms. We're all atomic. We're all protons, neutrons, and electrons. So if everything is made of the same stuff, then it would stand to reason. Common sense would dictate that there's a connection, that there's an energetic connection between all things, everything. And so what's the separation? Well, it's kind of like a weight. and I know it's going to sound like a really weird analogy, the weight is just the weight. What you
Mm.
do with the weight, how you use the weight, how you engage with the weight changes the outcomes, changes the experience, changes the development, changes everything. And so in our spirituality, the way that we engage with religion, the way we engage with the dogmas, the rules, and are we living them or are we just espousing them? There's a lot of folks who don't necessarily take action. Their church is like the gym membership, right? Sometimes they go, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're exercising, sometimes they're not. They're there to socialize. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but the
Well, it also
outcomes.
depends on, like I've been learning that we're living in different structures. It takes structure to create something. And
Yes.
so if you're living in the structure of creating, which is, learning creates success, and then, the success really, encourage, like, and then you apply. Well, I'm sorry, you learn, you apply, and then you gain success. And then from success, that encourages you to learn more, apply
Mhm.
more. And it's just like that's the creation cycle, you
Yes.
know, that is outside of your ego because again, you just said it, it's the application, it's funny because my son was staying with us this weekend, one of my older kids, and we were just having the conversation because yesterday there was things that were happening. I'm like, and I wasn't upset. And I'm like, this is the Zen mom. And him and my other son go, Zen mom? Who? And I'm like, me. They're like, okay, mom. Like, no. And I'm like, no. I said, I haven't yelled in a few days. Like, I am keeping my cool. And I'm going to tell you, it's because I've been doing this training again to deepen my practice, to deepen my understanding so I can apply better. And I've been applying it. It's like looking at a situation and asking myself, it's not good, it's not bad, an experience.
Right.
Detaching the emotions away from it to again, to resolve the ego that, oh, see, they didn't do it the right way. They didn't do it the right way. Cause that's totally been installed in my life. And those that know me and still love me know that I like to be right. And I'm like, wait, it's not my fault. It's what am I part of my identity that I keep trying to resolve. And when I
Right.
didn't need to be right or wrong, when my son almost flooded my kitchen yesterday, and I was calm about cleaning it up. And he's like looking at me like, are you feeling okay? Because I wasn't upset about it. I said, again, this is the Zen mom. So we were talking about it today. And he's like, mom, I have seen a shift in you. And it's
Nice.
because the application. And guess what? I have felt less stressed.
Yes.
I have felt less rushed to do things and fix things and make it right. So get accolades. I have really been calm. I
Mhm.
haven't gotten frustrated easily. And yeah, it's only been 72 hours and you got to start somewhere. So I tell everybody that you got to start somewhere. But just how I feel, I'm already starting to see the success, which is going to encourage me to
Yes.
continue this learning path to keep applying. And guess what? I am going to really go further, faster, as our good friend Joseph McClendon III always says. And I found this is the key, and it's so simple.
Yes.
But you first have to be attentive to learn and then apply. It's exactly what you said, the application of it.
It's intention without action. And in fact, I'm going to state it a different way. Emotion. And people
Yeah.
go, it's all about emotion. I said, you're 100% right. But all emotion is energy in motion. And so there's this precipice, the kind of this presupposition
Mm,
when we're sitting on the precipice of change. And what really moves people over the edge is engaging in the energy
right.
and then taking mammoth action or motion. And that is what combines and creates the spirituality in linking with our beliefs and values and linking with our spirituality of beliefs as well. Because some of these doctrines are so deeply rooted and they go, oh, good versus evil. Okay. Right and wrong. Okay. But I know people who are agnostic or don't even espouse to religion who do the right thing. So what's the right thing? Huh. Well,
What if
is
there
it
was no wrong thing?
so contrast is key, right? And where the universe, if we want to call it that, has kind of clandestinely manifested this for all of us, is that we have this mortal toil. And that 10 million year old monkey brain, at least in me, you're much more elevated than I am.
Oh yeah, I don't have monkey brain at all.
Yeah. I have platypus brain, monkey brain, beaver brain. I have all kinds of brain. Honey badger on some days, which isn't a bad thing. That can actually be very advantageous. And what's interesting though is that primal fear that I'm not enough, that primal fear that I don't have what it takes. And the truth is that what if we just add this precipice, this suffix to it, and it was like yet? I may not realize that I don't. Okay, I'm not ready yet. Doesn't mean I won't be. Doesn't mean that I'm not deserving. Doesn't mean that the opportunity and that spirit, nature, God, the divine, the universe isn't conspiring to give me and to anyone who is willing to make it. There's this huge. You got to believe it. You can't until you make it.
Right.
Because your body knows. Your body knows. It knows when you're not being truthful. It knows when you're not, yeah, you're just saying it. Yeah, you're just placating yourself. Because deep inside, you don't feel worthy. Deep inside, you're the person beating yourself up. No one else is. Everyone else is rooting for you and loving you and praying and hoping that you get to elevate.
Right. And that's why we try to resolve that. So if we resolve it, then we know we're good enough and then we'll keep going. So you mentioned something though just now about, are we right? How do we know we're right? Well, what's your measurement tool? Because my measurement tool used to be, before I started doing William's work, used to be, well, am I good enough? Do people like me? Are people commenting? Are people liking? Are people, reaching out? And that was my measurement tool. But my measurement tool now is, what would I love? What would I love? And the decision I'm making now, is it egoic? Because if it is, it's going to take me away from what I love.
Yes.
But if it's from my greater consciousness and I'm in, my creator state and it's taking me towards what I love, then it's opportunity choice at that point, not right or wrong, but opportunity. And
Absolutely.
That is what I'm learning to become my compass in life, is asking myself, what would I truly love right now? And really making sure, because we are raised to know what's good and bad. We when we're little, we grow up and it's like, oh, don't do that. That's bad. Don't do that. That's bad. And so then we have a contrast like, okay, I can't do that because it's bad. And then we grow up and we're like, oh, I can't talk too much because I got in trouble. It's bad. Since when is it bad to talk too much? When is that bad? Why was it labeled bad? And, as you and I both have experienced and learned, what we resist persists. And it becomes one of those things that we call that dark shadow, because we feel like we can't have it. So guess what we're doing? Our whole life, we're trying to resolve that feeling of, okay, it's bad. I can't do it. Why is it bad? Okay, I got to be good. If I'm good, then I can achieve. Instead of just saying all of that, it doesn't even exist, because nothing has a meaning except for the meaning we're going to give it.
You bring up so many great points, and it's one of those things we're so conflicted in contrast when we're growing up. Hey, there's no bad ideas. Hey, speak your mind. Hey, and then you do, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh,
don't say that.
Yeah, that really? That wasn't very smart.
I don't like you anymore. Why did you say that?
Well, I mean, are you serious? And they're like,
it should be this way, Chuck. Speak your mind the way I want you to speak your mind, and then you'll be okay.
Well, and I'm not trying to be berating when I say this, but many of the dogma in religion were predicated. And in popular, I'll say, religious sects today, much of it's interpretation. They'll read a verse and passage from the Bible, which is beautiful. It's one of the most exquisite, literary works ever constructed. And I'm reminded that it is a culmination of stories and experiences. And it's yet presupposed that it's the word of God. And I go, that's brilliant. That's great. How does that connect with AI? How does that connect with Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn? How does it connect with financial investments
Right.
and politics? And because I see a lot of people who are espousing and using passages and information and as supportive construct. And then I'm reminded that the human condition is that in hindsight, we can use anything to justify any action behavior. And it
Right.
doesn't mean that it's right. And it doesn't mean that it's pure or that it was divinely driven or spiritual in nature. Yet we're quoting dogma and making it as if it is the complete reality. And I'm like, wow. So I guess motive and intention really do make a huge difference. I guess that being divinely connected to the energy around you and understanding that you're not alone, that you're swimming in the sea of energy and that you are part of the construct and you're not inconsequential, that you have value innately. And
So
when we, yeah, please, no, please go.
yeah, so I was curious your thoughts. Could you be spiritual and religious at the same time?
100%, 100%. And here's why I believe this. I believe that you can espouse to a deity, God, Yahweh, Jehovah, Allah, Buddha, whatever religion you espouse to. If you're a Seinfeld, you're into Festivus, if that's your thing. And why do I go there? Well, these belief systems are really emotionally based, and they actually are what we'll call ethics and values that people espouse to use to give guidance. So let's look at it as if religion is a North Star, it's a guiding force that you use, and it's the meaning that you attach to it. We're meaning makers. That's who we are. That's what we are.
Right.
So I can live in the spirituality of the lessons and the learnings and the love, the light, the happiness, the appreciation, the gratis, and also with the fact that I'm not done cooking yet, and that my being is rejuvenating on a daily basis. My learnings and my growings are manifesting all the time. So I can use that North Star to guide me, but it doesn't make the decisions for me. I allow my faith and my spirituality to be that actionable emotion, that energy in motion. And so blind faith, and there are people that I know that believe in this, they go, I'm just going to give it to God. I'm going to just give it to God, and whatever happens, and then I'll decide what to do when I get the signs. And I'm not going to say I disagree with that, because when we're acutely aware and we're connected to everything around us, there's a strange way that manifestation happens. And that when we put ourselves in that energetic state, it's not by happenstance that you and I connect and that we co-host this show and that you're my sister from another mister and I'm your brother from another mother and that our families love and know each other. It's like, okay, this is really awesome. And I go, then why isn't it that way with everyone?
Yeah.
Right? And I go, well, if we're all divinely connected, then shouldn't we just be able to turn it on? It's like,
Wouldn't that be great?
Snap our fingers, the clapper. Like,
so I think that religion makes people feel safe because it gives them a right way to do things. And when you're brought up in a religion, you get to feel safe because if you're doing it right, you get the accolades, you get the rewards from your parents, and then you start to see, because if you have filters that everything goes the way it's supposed to, if you follow these rules, then that's your filter, and then that's what you believe and that's what you see. You can't see anything beyond those filters. And if you go beyond that, then you're bad, right? Goes back to that good and that bad. Then you don't, and then all of a sudden you get punished. That's what you see if I don't follow these rules. So you learn to feel safe inside those parameters. I remember talking about this on my other show about when I was little, and everybody in summer was going to vacation Bible school. So of course I want to go to vacation Bible school because our whole neighborhood was getting in Miss Rosemary's car to go to vacation Bible school. And my mom said, no, I couldn't go. Well, my mom worked. So I thought, well, I'm going to be sneaky. She's not going to know. And I went anyway. Well, I was told at vacation Bible school, if you don't accept Jesus in your heart, you're going to hell. So immediately I'm like, well, I'm going to accept Jesus in my heart because that's what you tell me. And that's what I'm going to believe. So I come home and I'm crying to my mom. I'm like, Mom, you got to accept Jesus in your heart. You're going to go to hell and you can't go to hell while I'm in heaven. And she's like, where have you been? And I'm like, don't worry about that. Just pray with me. And my mom is getting angrier and angrier by the moment. And all she's concerned about is, where the heck did my daughter go today? Like, where did she go while I was at work? And I'm like, well, I know I wasn't supposed to go, but everybody was going. But it's okay, Mom. You're going to be saved. Chuck, she tore me up because back then it was okay to do that. And I don't know if she was more mad because I was just like preaching to her, or if she was more mad that I disobeyed her and went to vacation Bible school. And then once she got her cool down, and once my butt cooled down, she had a talk with me and she says, so look, I'm not going to dictate to you who you need to be or how you need to be, but I will say this. While you're living under my roof, you are going to learn our religion. And when you are 18, you have the choice to do whatever you want to do.
Sure.
And so I started going to religious camps. I started learning about Sikhism. I started learning the beauty of it, whatnot. And guess what? It too was a religion. It too had these rules, and these rules get you, well, we believe in afterlife, but it gets you to the next afterlife. And the closer afterlife you get, the closer you get to God. So I, again, had to feel safe around that. And I did until like I said, that's why I started to learn. And that's why I started going to world religion and taking that in college, because I really, really was fascinated by the difference. Because you talk about hard rules and hard rules. You got two religions that believe different things and yet are both so beautiful.
Yes.
So beautiful in their own right. And the books are beautiful. And that is when I realized that I'm spiritual. And my husband has never believed in religion. And so when we got together, that's one of the things that we needed to talk about, especially because we had kids together. How do we want to raise them? And thank God we both have that spiritual belief that we know there's something beyond us. We know that there's a power beyond us that can guide us. And that's what we want to teach our kids.
Sure. You know, it's funny that you said that. My mother is Japanese, and so grew up Buddhist, and met my Irish father, who's Roman Catholic. And when I say Japanese, 4'11" and a half, 85 pounds, portable. My dad, redhead, blue-eyed Irishman. I mean, full freckles. If you turn on the light, he burns. That's how Irish he is.
Irish.
And Irish. The man's Irish. And so what was brilliant, though, was growing up, seeing Japanese temples as a kid, and then being raised in the Roman Catholic Church. And so I started realizing something at an early age. And it was more an energy than anything else. It wasn't just the dogma. It wasn't just the religious training. It was because I studied all different religions. I had ethics class. I went to I went to a Catholic elementary school and then an all-boys Catholic high school. Oh, yeah. And so you learn religion.
Talk about rules.
Oh, hey. When? All the time. Nuns in elementary school, priests in high school. It's like, wow. They wear a lot of black. Could explain my wardrobe in today's day and age. So one of the things that just kind of dawned on me, I was like, I do wear a lot of black. Here's what's interesting, though. I realized that both energies had a lot of gravity to them.
Right.
And that when you're in the sphere of those gravities, it pulls you. And it's not just about the lessons and the learnings. It's even how you listen, how you watch, how you engage, how you speak. So if you're reciting prayer, if you're singing a hymn, if you're connected at that level of having this dialogue, it's like, okay, there's a whole lot going on here.
Right.
And I'll be frank with you. When I was young, I didn't always understand. but there was an energy around it. And it wasn't awkward. It didn't feel weird or dirty. It felt compelled and guided and contributory. And it was like, wow. And it wasn't just a whole lot of rah-rah. It was a very humble celebration.
Right.
So why do I go there? I actually believe that part of my nature is now that when we are discussing things of a spiritual nature, I go to a very deep place. Like for me, this conversation isn't us being in our heads or trying to justify our belief systems. It's more so we're being inquisitive about how life feels and what that looks like. So I would ask you, and that was beautiful what you said, because Julie, my wife, is raised Roman Catholic. So our kids have been brought up in that environment. And what I find, though, is, with all due respect to our chosen denomination of religion, is that we're probably more Christian-based and that we have belief systems that are more universal around being kind and contributory and being connected to just causes. Not because of a movement, more so for the good of mankind. Being collectively conscious about serving and sharing and caring.
It's so funny. It's funny that you say that, Chuck, because when you're saying that, don't all religions have the same?
At their premise.
I mean, what they preach, what it's all about.
Well, what's in their dogma and what's written, if it's the Quran, right, the Torah, the Bible.
And again, it's interpretation. Like, you know, when 9/11 happened, the last religion you wanted to say you were attached to was Muslim. And yet that's such a beautiful, beautiful faith. If you read it, yes, if you read it, it's, you know, I have friends that are Muslim and they're amazing people and it's all love and kindness. It's again, you said it, it's the interpretation of the meaning you're giving it and the way you, and here's the truth. It's, you're going to make it fit your life. You are.
Yeah, you are. And you brought up something that just hit me like a ton of bricks. So I have a question. Is extremism spirituality?
To that person.
Is it though? I wonder, because I'm like going, being part of a just cause. And you know what, to your point, yes, because the meaning behind spirituality for me is doing the right thing for the right reasons.
And if that's their right reasons for doing it at the right time, definitely don't condone it, because that's not my filters.
Sure.
And for them, it is.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
The religion I was brought up in is Sikhism. We're all warriors. I mean, shoot, men's middle name is Singh, which means warrior heart, right? Like warrior heart, like God's warrior. And we're raised, die for your religion. I mean, it's in the
Crusades were about religion,
right?
You know, I mean, if you look at the Bible and Moses and Egypt and I mean, false gods and pagans and you know, one thing that resonates so true in this discussion is if we break it down to the basics, which is there are always going to be people who, in the pursuit of their truth and their beliefs and what they espouse as being life and death and real now, that means I have no problem imposing my will on another soul. And I go, ooh. So how does that make me feel? And it just dawned on me. I was like, Your spirituality at the deepest level is emotion, and at its core tenets, it's how it makes you feel. And you went back to that center earlier where you said secure, connected, contributory. And I love this, our executive producer, and he says, religion is not more than the basis for a set of rules to morality, dignity, and human emotion. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what we said in the very beginning, right? It's a set of structure that we can hang things on.
And like I said, everything has a structure that makes us grow or makes us not. And, you know, there's the two orientations we live in, the egoic or the creator, the greatness inside of us. And we just forget that. So we're constantly, we want to be right. So if you follow religion, it's going to keep you safe. We want to know we're enough. If you follow religion, it's going to show you you're enough. You want to know you're worthy, follow religion. It's going to tell you why you're worthy. They get answers all those insecure beliefs that have been adopted in us since birth by our
Yes.
raising, and it gives us the answer to make us feel safe. And once we feel safe, then we're like, okay, now I can do it. Now I'm able to create that. But if I didn't do it first, then we get distracted by these obstacles that take us off course.
Yes.
So we keep chasing that so we don't have to answer to what we really want. And again, it takes us back to religion versus the spirituality, because when we're in that spirituality, there's a wholeness already that we have in us.
Yes.
We already are whole. There's not missing parts of who we are.
And that creates a bit of a moral dilemma when we start to talk about the sanctity of life and who has the right to espouse, or because we all bleed red. And there's a part of us that, and this was something that came up in a conversation that I had yesterday with a men's group, our YBL men's group. And right now we understand carbon-based life forms because on our planet, that's the most prevalent biochemical construct, and we are carbon-based life forms. Everything that we relate to is carbon-based. So here's a challenge. If you were to meet a silicone-based life form, is that like the same as saying I'm white and you're dark skinned, or there's someone who's black or someone who's purple or magenta or indigo, that they're less of a person or they're less of an entity because they're not made of the same stuff that we are? And it starts to create this dilemma. Julie and I took the girls. Cole wasn't home, but we took the girls and we went to go see the movie The Creator. Holy smokes. I can honestly say I have not walked out of a movie feeling more confused and more numb ever in my lifetime than I was over this construct between artificial intelligence and the human condition and the blending of the two, and to the point where they actually had a deity that is an AI intelligence that was cultivated out of a human embryo and a child. So it's like, okay, wait, like what's going on? The interesting thing about this is that oftentimes we make emotion a human interaction. We talk about, oh, AI will never be the same because there's no emotional engagement. It's devoid of it. It doesn't have the ability to generate that level of vibration.
So are we going to be living in the life of the Terminator?
Well, I will say this.
Like, seriously, like, are we really talking about like how a machine idea is masked by human, and we don't know if we're going to be talking to a human or...
Well, no, this is the interesting part. There was a defining line between these symbiotes. And so they actually go, you can go into this donation program where they will go ahead and map your likeness and then start to create like symbiotes. Here's the interesting part about this, Veenu. What we feed into the narrative AI today creates a compounding effect in the future. So if the building blocks of AI are compassion, understanding, acceptance, love, gratitude, connection, growth, respect, the intellectual quotient with which these prompts start to propagate are based on the foundation. And so something that's uber important that we should consider right now, while AI is still not as smart as the smartest human being on the planet. That's where it's resonating. It's right 142, 130, 150 range. Smartest people 160 to 180. Why is this important? In several months to in the next year, two, by 2025, it's estimated that the intelligence quotient of ChatGPT will be at 100 or 100% higher, so doubled what the most intelligent human is. So in 2 years, less than
It's gonna
that,
be Einstein.
beyond, it's going to be Einstein times another Einstein. And it's like, here's where it really gets freaky. 2050. Guess what the exponential rise is then? 1,000% more intelligent. And so there was a philosophical question that was levied in this conversation. What does a human feel about an ant? Well, if you're a Zen Buddhist, you believe that everything has a spirit, irrespective of how small, and you would never harm an ant. But in your pursuit of your spirituality and your religion, if you feel, i.e., that it's just an ant and there's a lot of them, and you are so far beyond the intellectual quotient of this ant, because the perception is that we were bigger. If an ant was the same size as you, would you feel the same way? We're going down a deep rabbit hole that I don't know that we have answers to.
Yeah.
But I will say this, and Eduardo, thank you for this insight too. And he gives a clarifier to his earlier statement, which is the problem is that people take those set of beliefs so far and change its meaning to a battle of the powerful. And part of the human condition is that we are committed to growth. We are committed to expounding and elevating self. And you and I have lived this life since forever. We met in this pursuit of growth and contribution and elevating. And I will also remind us that now, and I will say this for me, and I feel this way for you too, Veenu, and that your growth in your spirituality and your exchange of being able to create more meaning and value and reference points is that now with experience, the skill is supporting the spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
So some of this is time on this planet.
Yeah.
Some of this is, I've met some people who are highly elevated and they have insane skill, their linguistics, the way that they present themselves. And then I'm reminded they lack experience.
You know, I also think that people, it's, again, not good or bad. It's an experience. It's the experiences that we get to experience each and every day, you know, putting things in perspective. And I look back and I hate to say that the 80s was retro, but I mean, it is. 80s is retro. And, you know, I listen to 80s music a lot and all these flood of memories come. And I think to myself, like, wow, this song was 40 years ago. And I can remember, it makes me remember 40 years ago where I was during that song or why that song meant something to me. It could be something that it woke me up every morning to my alarm clock, because we used to have alarm clocks that actually played music when you woke up. And I was just thinking about where life is now. Like, even thinking of, you know, watching one of my favorite cartoons growing up, the Jetsons. And I'm like, can you imagine looking at someone and talking to them across the world? Like, or like even next door? Like,
you didn't have a cord attached to the end.
Right. And it's like, holy smokes, we're doing it. We're doing it like now. And, you know, when people say, like, what do you think the future holds? I don't know. Like, I literally do not know. And I cannot guess, because even that cartoon, the Jetsons, I never thought that this would, I couldn't fathom that. Like, we were just getting cable, you know, and now we have streaming TV. Like, we don't have, Like, we used to go to Blockbusters on Friday for fun, and it took us an hour to agree on what movie we were gonna pick, and now we have 5 different TVs that you can watch 5 different streaming things and watch what you want, and there's no arguments now.
There was one TV in the house.
Right.
And you watched whatever the programming was that was available at that time because that was the selection you had.
That was it.
That was it.
That was it. And so, again, it comes down to number 1, being open. The more we close ourselves off, the more we want to complain about what's happening, it's not gonna
Right.
stop it. It's
No.
not. The best thing we can do is what we were talking about: learn, apply, succeed, which will encourage you to learn more. And start
Yes.
creating what you want, and stop being tied down by all the rules in your life because you feel you have to make yourself better before.
Right.
It's what if you were already better now?
How brilliant would that be? And manifesting that the peer group, the people, the information, we get to decide where we're occupying space and time. And it's interesting to see what passes as a worthy cause. It's interesting to see what people believe is a world-changing event. And oftentimes, and I've seen this in certain instances as of late, where some people will go ahead and manifest and they'll push a narrative. And why? Well, it's not that it's not a worthy cause, but it's also the fact that they're receiving massive amounts of remuneration, fame, and press to push their story forward.
Right.
And so it's like, oh, but and they'll call it a movement. They'll call it, this is what we do and this is who we are. And I'm not disagreeing with it. I believe in many of these things as well. And I would also say that the reciprocity to one person, is that they get to connect and be a part of a community. To the other person, they get to be connected and part of a community, have a sphere of influence, grow their public acclaim, and make a ton of money.
Right.
And you're like going, who's the smarter one? And I go, well, I guess if you're the focus of the attention and your story is being told, then you feel important in that moment and you're part of this collective movement. And it's wonderful. I love that people get applauded for being who they are. On the other side of it, I would say the ones who are the geniuses are the ones who are pushing the narrative. It's like, influence. What a novel concept.
Right. Right.
So why do I go there? Because I know we're getting to wrap up in a minute. It's interesting to see the leadership styles and how that actually manifests itself. And most of those leadership styles come from our belief systems, which come from our spirituality and our backgrounds and all these different value systems that we've created. So who's to say what's right or wrong?
Again.
Not me.
Again, is there a right or wrong? If you have the rules, which I'm a rule person because that's what I'm trying to resolve in me, is not being right all the time. And again, it's because there's rules. There was rules all the time growing up. There was rules in my religion. There was rules at home. And my mom's rules were based around the religion we were growing up in, or the culture, being Indian, growing up Indian in America. My house was still Indian. My house was still cultured,
Sure.
while all my friends are wearing these like cut off shorts, like, no, you're a respectful girl. You don't do that. It was a rule.
It's a rule. Sure.
Again, and it's just fostering that. So it's really about, again, for our listeners, just expanding. Like, we're not saying it's right or wrong. We're saying what's true for you. I'm saying really understand what would you love, and what do you love outside of the ego, the materialistic things. Like, what will money bring you, really? What will that car bring you? It's not about the material things. Look beyond that of what you would love. And the decisions you make in your life, is it taking you towards that or away from that? And if you want to know more, and I'll put this on my Facebook, it's public on my Facebook, Veenu Keller, and I'll put the site to get the Secrets of Natural Success by William Whitecloud, because it really, really goes into deeper about these beliefs and how to let go and knowing your go orientation versus your creator, because and it really opens you up spiritually, but it's beyond spiritual. It opens you up. It opens your soul up to realizing, how do you want to live your life in your truth? And what is your truth?
That's beautiful. With that, I will just say, live in your truth, whatever that means to you in this moment. It's no one's privilege to judge you, and you're doing yourself a disservice if you start to marginalize or think that you're not worth it and that you're not valued. We all have times of, strife, trouble, where we don't feel necessarily connected to who we are and what we're all about. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because the universe has this way of conspiring to give you another day, and you wake up above ground and you get to live your best life. You get to live now. Tomorrow's not promised to anyone. Live now.
I couldn't say it better. Well, my friend, it's been great. It's been so good to see you again. And I look forward to our next week's show. If you are finding value in this conversation, please join us live on the comments. We love to hear from you. We love to hear your feedback. Thank you for joining the conversation tonight. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all your news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.